Alrighty, everybody. It is Steve here, the retired hobby tech guy. And today, yes, today, we're talking about funny stuff that soldiers and their family members say and do. And it's the drama. It is the entitlement. It is the going back and forth. It's the humor of the thing, especially when people get really ticked off at something that is probably not something that they should be ticked off about, and all of that goes into play. It is absolutely kind of funny at times. And like I said, I'm Steve, the retired hobby tech guy, American expat living in Korea, close to Camp Humphreys. So with that, there's a lot of things that service members and their families say. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and we'll get this right here, because this is what we're talking about. Boom, funny stuff that soldiers do and their family members. Yeah, it is quite the thing that goes on. For those of you who don't know, I spent a career in the military, retired from the military. Unfortunately, I was enlisted, so I had to work after that. But long story short, the wife and I, we sold absolutely everything in the United States. We threw stuff in a couple of suitcases, and we came and ended up retiring here in Korea, which has been really good. We have enjoyed it, and doing 3D printing, doing miniature painting, figure painting, stuff like that, going to the gym, getting big and buff and all that, seeing the fall colors of Korea, spring. Really don't like the summer, hot, humid summers. I could do away with that. Matter of fact, I don't know any Koreans that like the hot and humid Korean summers. Terry pops up and says, "Good morning." Good morning, Terry. Good to see you. Yeah, we are having some fun today. And we're going to be talking about funny stuff that soldiers and family members say, along with some other ranting stuff. A little admin note. Recently, I did a video where I was talking about Korean immigration and so on and so forth, and how the Korean president had, was saying, hey, well, if you put out misinformation or hate and disinformation disguised as opinion, and some other things, and I just kind of, threw my 2 cents in there or whatever. Yeah, I had to delete that video. It was like, I'm going to err on the side of caution, because I do have a visa. I am a guest of Korea, and so is my wife, for that matter. So if anything that I said, because there are other articles that popped up and said, well, if you talk bad about the immigration and so on and so forth, and this, of course, this big thing with China going on here in Korea, and the Chinese and the Koreans going back and forth, because we went over a bunch of that. I deleted that video. And I had a couple of people message me and say, hey, you might want to think about taking down that video. So I was like, you know what? I thought about it, and I went ahead and deleted that video. So with that, I guess I'm not going to talk about Korean immigration or things like that. And maybe I'll talk about a country, some other country in immigration, or made up countries and their immigration policies. I don't know. Or maybe I just won't even do that. We'll see what goes on. It was quite the interesting thing, and how the turn of events in what's going on, and in that video is kind of like, who's the arbitrator of what's disinformation, what is true opinion versus fake opinion, or is disinformation, there's things that were disinformation or considered untrue in the United States. I'm not talking about Korea. I'm talking about Korea. I'm talking about the United States, where people say, oh, that's a lie. And then later on down the road, it ends up, well, it was actually true. What do you do with that? If you were going to be prosecuted for something like that in the United States, and then later it was proved to be you were right, would you have legal recourse? So, and obviously there have been cases where lawsuits have been filed for slander and so on and so forth, kind of around that area, into millions and millions of dollars for different people in situations that they were in, where they were painted as the bad guy, the bad girl, or whatever it was, is absolutely untrue. And then it actually yeah, it was true, and yeah, they weren't the bad person or bad girl. So yeah, that was kind of the interesting thing. So I figured to err on the side of caution, and we'll go over some interesting stuff. Now, a little bit later than usual, so it is what it is. But with that being said, being retired from the military, I still keep my ear to the ground. Of course, being on social media, I belong to a number of pages or groups that center around Camp Humphreys, and you can get some pretty dramatic and funny things that pop up. And it's some people get really pissed off, over things that people of my generation wouldn't be pissed off about. There's a lot of things that go into play. Excuse me. But then, there's also the military humor that kind of brings it. I'm retired, not my monkey, not my circus, but I still enjoy reading some of the drama that goes on because it brings back the memories of when I was in service and some of the situations. And so we're going to go a little bit into that. And let's just go ahead and we'll jump into this. Boom. We'll do that. We'll hit this button, and slowly but surely, sometime soon, there we go. I think I need to restart my Mac one of these days. This is the Camp Humphrey support group, and I belong to that group, which is a great group. There's a lot of people on there, and it's for people that live, service members, family members, retirees, people that live around Camp Humphreys, and it's quite the interesting thing. Now, this was a way back, but this was an interesting one. It says, to the first sergeant who tried to stop one of my teams near Talon Defac this morning during PRT hours because one of my troops had his boots start to come loose during a ruck march screaming, "What's your SOP? What SOP?" Well, the SOP is to do PRT or combat PT during that time. Shouldn't you have been conducting PRT instead of driving around and looking for uniform deficiencies? My office is open, building 2062, second floor, Charlie Company 602 Delta. And that is Mr. Sean Duffy, First Sergeant of Charlie Company 602 Aviation Support Battalion, Telecommunications Chief. Hey, I was combo as well. Field radio operator, electronics technician, E-PLARS tech at U.S. Army Cyber Center of Excellence. Man, cool. That I did a lot of communications during my time. Except I was the communications expert that ended up being the guy in the infantry carrying the big radio on his back with a bunch of batteries. And I was the guy in armor units who had the battery, the radio and the battery on his back and all kinds of stuff. And I was the guy in the armor units and then the field artillery units that had the radio on his back. And so I, I wish I had the cushy jobs, but I didn't. So yeah, it was just quite the interesting little thing that we ended up having there. But yeah, reading some of the comments on these things are hilarious. Kyle Smith says, "I'm here for the drama. Following." Yeah, gonna go in for that tea. He isn't going around to show up because he wasn't doing PRT. If he shows, have him visit the third floor. No balls to show up first, Sergeant. I do what I want, Sean. And so when you read this stuff, and if you spent time in the military, this will take you back and to where you have similar situations of people that would do this. And, the Army's newer, times have changed, but there are some things that just don't change. Strong flex. Let's see. Arguing on social media. Grr. Sean, if that's really you and not a swatter, please delete. This page is not for that. Thanks. 923. So with all the BS on this page, this is where we draw the line. And if you spend anything, you will have people that will talk about There was somebody that ended up. Oh, I got to talk about this. There was somebody that ended up putting a rant on the Camp Humphrey support page, and they were pissed off. They were pissed off because the DFAC, one of the DFACs, didn't have tuna fish, and good Lord, they had traveled and walked, a zillion miles to get to the DFAC, and they were pissed off that there was no tuna fish, and then that story kind of went out, and then there was the commissary, and that kind of a meme joke came in to the commissary, and it's like, hey, does anybody know if there's a delivery today? And then somebody would post in there, I hope they got tuna fish, otherwise there's going to be hell to pay. And so that kind of carried on, and you get these little jokes that people throw out from time to time. But yeah, it's kind of funny to read this stuff. So there is a lot of BS. You'll have people that'll BS about parking, about stuff that is much ado about nothing, and a lot of entitled people. And so when this says, so with all the BS on this page, this is where we draw the line. That is just so funny. Exactly. Ain't going to be none of that tomfoolery going on in here, not on his watch. Trying to save a service member from counterproductive behavior. That's all. And here's the thing. What? Me having a conversation, first sergeant to first sergeant, about he was being counterproductive and how there were more important issues at hand than a boot blouse coming undone during a road march. And again, the fact that you would never, of course, there wasn't social media back in my day, but it's just hilarious I would hope that my generation would not put this stuff on social media, but if we had social media, I'm pretty sure somebody would post it on there. Jojo Manley says, looks like you found said first sergeant. If this is really you should have learned at SLC not to be emotional about things and write emails or posts when you're angry. You should send an email to all the first sergeant on Camp Humphreys. If you need help, get with your SIGO. It's really me, the one and only. Oh, also, I don't need help with an email. I am Signal. I'd rather see people complain about parking or the commissary. This must be Sean Sergeant Major. Trying to help Sean, if it's really him, to be a better NCO. It's really me. I have to be real. Damn, that would be cool to tell him to his face. He needs to chill. I have a cool down room at the barracks if they want to stop by. Oh, cool down. Seriously? A cool down room? I thought we only had that in prisons. Here's a little story going back to the days of when I was in the United States. I was working in the state of Colorado, working for the state. I worked in corrections, and I ended up being a guard and, knuckle dragging guard and doing all that. And then I got promoted and became a lieutenant. And then I was an electronics technician and did stun fences and cameras and PTZs and zooming in and alarm systems and cell doors. I was responsible for all that stuff. And I worked with a team of inmates who were assigned to me to help do work. So the funny thing is that through the Colorado Department of Corrections, somebody came up with a good idea to have a cool down room. And so if inmates got too overstressed and it was just too much for them to handle, they could go to the cool down room. And the cool down room was basically a cell that was cleared out of everything. And then they painted clouds. And they painted trees on the walls with grass, and on the ceiling were clouds and birds flying around and all this stuff. And then they had this tape player with this soft, soothing music in the cool down room, and you had this beanbag chair, and then you would sit in the beanbag chair and you woosah, woosah, and it was supposedly help the inmates, cool down and be transported into another stage of consciousness, and their alpha waves would be changed to beta waves, and they would end up being much nicer. That didn't work out as planned because the little music playing device there, that actually they cracked into that and took parts out of it to make tattoo guns and drug paraphernalia, which was hilarious. And then they ended up taking the beanbag chair and taking the little plastic beanbag things or foam things out of there, and they would melt them down and found some illicit use for those as well. And people would huff it and try to get high. So yeah, it was a horrible, and nobody really cooled down. And the straw that broke the camel's back is when there were two inmates in the cool down room, and they were not cooling down. It was, it was, it was, it was like, oh, wait a second. No more cool down room. So yeah, that was kind of funny. It was cool down rooms in the military, really. I don't know if that's. I hope that's not real. It's a lot of anonymous people chiming in. Looks like a first sergeant giving another first sergeant an opportunity to come have a conversation. Pretty straightforward. And again, the fact that, yeah, on face work, that's not how first sergeants work or supposed to work. That's definitely a different take on how a first sergeant should take care of their soldiers than I would do it. What do I know? I'm not a first sergeant. It's 2025. We're supposed to leverage social media. Yes, and teach that at the Sergeant Major Academy as well. It is just like people asking, do share an update if he shows up. I feel like there's more context. Although there's a large amount of pricks in the Army, I don't see a first sergeant losing his shit over bootlaces in the middle of PT. That is actually untrue. And during the over 20 years I spent in the military, I have seen sergeants, staff sergeants, sergeant first class, first sergeants, sergeant majors, command sergeant majors, officers lose their shit because of the smallest thing possible. And it is a thing. And it's an army, it's a military tradition to, I think what it ends up happening is that the military has a requirement. You have quotas for so many of these type of soldiers and that type of soldier and this job and that job, and so, to meet the quotas, so many for promotions and so on, have quotas for everything. And honestly, I think there's a quota for the number of pricks that need to be in the military because they are there. There's a certain quota for enlisted pricks, then non-commissioned officers and officers, junior officers, senior officers, even i.e. generals. It's a smaller quota as you get higher sometimes. So, at the higher levels, you don't have it as much, but it seems like, from like E7, first sergeant, master sergeant, and even command sergeant major, that and around kind of the officer thing too. Kind of like maybe like first lieutenant and then captain and some majors. And that, at least during my time, those were the ones that were the prickiness, the pricksters, as I guess you could say. So yeah, it's a continuing saga of the military that you have people like that. I have seen worse things someone has lost it over, so the chances are high. Yeah, that's the point though. It's only one side of the story. No one is fact-finding, just jumping to conclusions. Oh, now we're getting into the fact-finding mission of somebody yelling at a soldier for having an unbloused boot during a road march. I spent time in the military, and we would do road marches every single Friday. We would do 4, 6, 8, and 12-mile road marches on every Friday. So on the first Friday, we do 4 miles, then 6, 8, and then 12 miles. So during a month, those 4 Fridays, we were road marching. And it wasn't like the road marching that you see here on Camp Humphreys. A lot of the road marching is like the little tiny mini backpack, and, it's kind of like this big, maybe it's got a water bottle and maybe a hat or some gloves in it, and they're kind of doing their thing, but I have seen soldiers on Camp Humphreys with big rucksacks. I mean, big ones. I mean, like infantry, 75, 100 pounds, like what we used to do. And, it would be your packing list and then your basic load weight was added to that. So we're talking ammunition, we're talking, and of course it wasn't real ammunition, but we're talking, get enough weight of the ammunition and put that into your ruck. And then, of course, me being the communications guy, I had the PRIK 77, had the magnesium batteries, and then a 3-day supply of that. So generally, my rucksack was 90, over 100 pounds a lot of the times. And yeah, it was just absolutely. And when you're doing those road marches, at least when I was at Fort Campbell, your boots would become unbloused, you're sweating, it is just like you're miserable, you're running the whole 9 yards. Never ever at Fort Campbell in the infantry was I ever or had seen anybody get in a soldier's ass because the boot was unbloused. Or because, maybe one or two of the buttons on his blouse was undone. And it's just because, you're carrying a 75-pound ruck and you're doing an 8 or a 12-mile road march. Good Lord, seriously, leave the Joe alone. He's doing something. And I couldn't imagine another first sergeant on Fort Campbell driving around looking for uniform deficiencies. Because one, we would be out in the sticks on the back 40 doing these road marches, and it's just not something that was done. And hell, even when I was in Korea, we did road marches. You didn't have people during that time being petty pricks and pointing this stuff out. So yeah, just the fact that at Camp Humphreys you have such a wide variety of different types of soldiers, it doesn't surprise me. I've definitely seen whole situations like this before. Never think that people have better things to do either. Could be either way, but I'm sure it could have been like that. So he has clearly stated that the other first sergeant come see him. Seems like a great opportunity to get the other side of the encounter. So you see these things posted in the stories and you're like, oh man, I really wish we would be able to get and see the end result of this. Daniel, I definitely believe it's possible. I once had a sergeant major chew me out for smiling all the time. Now, when I was in the Air Force, I was walking on the other side of the street. Some Army captain yelled across the street, screaming, "Hey, why aren't you saluting me? I'm an officer." I looked at him crazy and just kept walking. That is hilarious. Absolutely. Oh, and that reminds me of the military spouses that will want soldiers to salute them because they're driving their husband's car and because they're a lieutenant colonel or general or whatever it is. And it's just, somehow the wife absorbs the rank of her spouse who's the active duty. And she's not. She's a dependopotamus. And look up the word dependopotamus, and it's a spot-on definition, but they will try to carry on the rank that their husband has, and that they should be given all the pomp and circumstance and salutes and the whole thing, and oh, don't you know who my husband is? And it's like, lady, you're drunk driving. It doesn't matter who your husband is or what his rank is, or you hit the light pole, or, you got a speeding ticket. I don't care who your husband is. It is absolutely crazy. But that's funny. That is funny. First sergeant staring at other units doing PT. That's a good one there. I like that. Well, that offended me. I'm pressing play. There's only one way to solve this. Combatives. Yes. Toughen up, princess. Yeah, toughen up. I'm for calling out BS and child behavior, but I can see where people are coming at you as the bad guy in this, and God knows I don't give a shit about professionalism on this page. If you really wanted to handle this like professionals, you would be the better suited to say, just to say the incident without taking a jab at him while calling him out. Wrong or not, he was evidently your peer. Do you think it's productive or professional to squabble in front of juniors? Now, honestly, this is absolutely true. I get that you want to tell an MFer to pack sand and mind their business, but frankly, you should. And frankly, you should, but you can't do so while losing your own righteous footing as well. The call out doesn't have to include what you think that first sergeant should be doing. For all you know, they were doing exactly what Sergeant Major told them to do. Here, there's something to be said for that. You confront other people of your rank and higher one-on-one. You never complain or rat them out in front of other soldiers. In other words, you deal with the majority of it one-on-one. Now, if the soldiers are screwing up and you're doing a shotgun blast to the platoon because they all screwed up, or it's just that, again, it's that shotgun blast because you want to stop the spread of the plague of stupidity, you do that. But with this, in my time, we didn't have social media. So we wouldn't handle it this way on social media, but we didn't have social media. So I don't know. But there is something about that part right there, to squabble in front of the juniors. Yeah, it is. That's a thing. George Valentine pops up, says, howdy. Hey, good morning. If you want to get them back, to call out, for all you know, they were doing what actually the sergeant major told them to do. He gave his peer opportunity to engage him. I don't recall seeing anything in the original post degrading the other first sergeant. Peer-to-peer conversation sounds like a healthy way to address it. We don't know what was said to that young trooper, but it left enough of an impression that the first sergeant feels it requires addressing. That tells me it probably does. Let's let the first sergeant do first sergeant shenanigans. Shouldn't have you been conducting PRT instead of driving around looking for uniform deficiencies? Did you miss that? Yeah. Just kind of, man. Imagine a battalion commander walking to a formation in the motor pool while the formation's battalion commander and all of a sudden interrupting and saying, hey, your vehicles aren't lined up like they should be. Fix yourself. Do you think that offers professional courtesy and tact in front of the BC's soldiers? No, it does not. It's really not that difficult to grasp. That kind of shit happens behind closed doors. If that tact and consideration doesn't register, then perhaps you have some self-reflection to do. Sure, the mystery first sergeant in question is unidentified, except maybe to those who were there, maybe not by name. But the original poster of this post would be in for a very rude awakening if that first sergeant's command sergeant major, CO or BC, joined in for a heart-to-heart and get really humbled really quick about handling things like an adult and being more selective about the words and approach, blah, 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 and versus showing his ass about it, when keeping it really goes wrong. Yeah, and this will just go on and on and on. It's for all the people complaining of just how this post is unprofessional and stirring up drama, is this not the reason you're in the group? That's part of the reason. It is. Blue Falcon. Yes, yes. Are you not entertained? Yeah. I got to reply. Let's put a reply on that. Are you not entertained? And we will pop that into the comments there. So. But it's just absolutely, it is just absolutely funny on the stuff that we end up seeing. Are you not entertained? Sounds like it could have been handled in person. Army life is crazy. You've done messed up, Aaron. Get him, Sean Duffy. Me in the comment section. Yeah, get him, get him, get him. This was my platoon, and this did happen. Oh. Now we got some first. Went to speak with him to see what the problem was, but they drove off. Proud of our soldiers for getting after it this morning. Oh, that's kind of a. Oh, so this was my platoon. So that tells me that Matthew, Mr. Rincon here, was a platoon sergeant or platoon leader. What is he? Let's see. Let's see if we see what he is. He is. I don't know, founder at DigiCoffee? Studies MBA, Master's Business. I don't know, maybe he's a lieutenant or something, but he was a platoon leader of some rank, enlisted or officer. Went to speak with him to see what the problem was, but they drove off. Proud of our soldier. See, that's kind of jacked up. If you're gonna end up driving around posts, calling out soldiers for get what the SOP, what's the SOP say, and for having a boot unbloused while you're road marching, and then somebody starts walking up towards you to see what the conundrum is, and then you, as the yelling first sergeant who's not doing PT during PT hours, drives off. Yeah, that sounds like a dick. That's all I'm gonna say. That's just. They saw that blue check mark coming at them, and they knew they effed up. You see what I mean? And this is the stuff that happens in the military. Prior to social media, this was all done face to face and in person, or we would, as we got back to the office or, the areas, the motor pool or wherever your shop was, we'd be talking about this, or, we'd all have coffee. The sergeants would get together, at least when I was in, you kind of get together and you talk about what you're going to do, and you go over the latest scuttlebutt and everything before you, have your formations and all that. So we did this. We just didn't do it on social media, so it was at a micro level. There are way too many people here with no purpose but to make life miserable and then complain because their formations don't agree to stay in Korea. World star! If this was my first sergeant, he was standing in front of me, I'd be proud as hell to be in that organization. Sorry about my silly boot blouser top. It's like, we need to bring back the gladiator pits. Ooh! When I was in the military, when I went through basic training, drill sergeants could still hit you. There was still the wall-to-wall counseling going on. And then about 3/4 of the way through basic training, they said, yeah, we're not going to do this anymore. It still did to some degree. But the first time I saw a drill sergeant hit a soldier was during PT. And so this is kind of ties in with during PT time. And we're brand new, we got off the bus, yelling, screaming, and then eventually you wake up at dark 30 and you're on the PT field and you do the double arm intervals so there's space, put your arms up and then the other person next to you, and then you start doing PT. And, so it ends up a double arm interval, this drill sergeant, and I was in the row behind this guy. So I'm seeing this guy is like right here, like maybe 7 feet, maybe 5 feet away from me. His arms are up. The drill sergeant walks past him. This kid says, fuck you. Drill sergeant, because the drill sergeant said, hey, get your arms up, because the guy didn't have his arms up. So as the drill sergeant walked by this guy, he said, F you. And then the drill sergeant, without missing a beat, turns around, boom, right in the gut. Guy drops like a sack of potatoes. He's out of breath. He can't breathe. He can't breathe. All of a sudden, everybody's like, ding, arms up, arms up. That was my first experience of seeing somebody, a drill sergeant, hitting somebody. And we never had any problems. It was, whatever drill sergeant said, hell, we were on it. It was like, but the gladiator pits, how that guy talked about the gladiator pits. For those of you who don't know, the Marines have like a gladiator pit where you come and you work out your issues, could be with pugil sticks and whatever, or boxing. We had boxing smokers and we had boxing gloves. I remember being my first unit, and then if you had issues, there was a place in the motor pool and the motor sergeant had boxing gloves and you would work out your issues. And, whatever it was, Superman's better. No, Silver Surfer's better. And then they would go to town on each other or whatever. And they would work the issues out that way. Yeah, and then they did away with that because some people got hurt. So, hurt. So, yeah, it ends up just brings back so many memories that were just funny. The gladiator pits were a thing. Update. No one stepped up. This post was an invite to have a professional conversation, one first sergeant to another, to stand up for my soldiers in my company. you can think it's unprofessional all day or that it's being counterproductive. It's 2025, times have changed, and all sorts of things get posted on social media. For the ones mad, saying this isn't the purpose of this page, I have to follow up question. What are the hours to the vet clinic tomorrow? What? What is 9 to, that took a weird turn. Let's continue on. Now I see why Humphreys is ran by officers. NCOs are too busy being keyboard thugs. 60 Deuce D Battalion 1, other Battalion 0. I heard there's a crazy NCO over by the shopette with the Charlies that gets on soldiers for wearing beanies inside the shopette. However, he does it after PRT hours, headgear in the building. I heard he even parade rested a PFC and PV2 for not saluting an officer and made them go back and salute the officer. Actually, it's sad he has to do that, but I guess he's tired of watching the world burn. Oh shit, the comments already started. Excuse me, pardon me, coming through. And then we have this. Is anyone going to talk about the root cause? Who taught the soldier how to lace and tie up their boots? It's like a double... This is how far this stuff goes. Holy crow. Where was the team leader? Did he inspect the boots, specifically the knots? Some PCs would have fixed this entire situation if it came before it became a noble Facebook topic. God forbid the soldier tripped over the laces. Now we're talking about potential readiness issue in the profile, taking time of our limited medical professionals here. Let's not forget now the safety officer has to brief how someone got injured due to lack of a double knot. Crazy. A car is probably not the best way to correct someone, but dang, there was there the double knot at NPCCZ. I like all that come by my office. Reminds me of high school when we would go to the parking lot and fix issues. Yeah, that is funny. The root cause, not teaching people to do the double knots. All right, sweetie. Is it good? Yeah. Good. Then it says, honestly, this new Army is weak AF. You all made the U.S. Army WTF moments. We're all asking for AAR and screenshots and comments. Well done, Humphreys. What car did he drive? I'm sure it's a Hyundai. I'm recording.
Oh. Okay.
Got to respect First Sergeant who stands up for their troops against the leaders who are 99% or why good soldiers leave the Army. This is the difference between a leader and an empty uniform who has to constantly remind everybody they're in charge until they retire to become CIF employees. It's always the permanent profile, overweight senior NCOs that preach standards. Pretty ironic. I mean, laces on boots and shoes come undone all the time, whether it's a ruck or a run. And it's not because they didn't tie it properly, but some types of laces easily come undone. It just, isn't that just, I mean, that's some of the stuff that you end up seeing. And then there's other drama that comes in as well. That is hilarious. You'll have the family members that will, bring up stuff and, the sense of entitlement. How dare they, stop me? I had an appointment at the hospital and the PT formation made me late. No, the formation didn't make you late. You made you late. You are the one that did the lateness because you didn't take into account that you're going to drive in during the PT times on Camp Humphreys where people are known to do lots of PT and formations and hold up traffic at some points. But it's their fault. It's not your fault that you were late for your medical appointment, knowing that there's PT Monday through Friday every day. I don't know. And there's signs posted that says when troops are around and formations that you slow down to 10 kilometers an hour, and that's a rule. And they block off roads for PT and in some areas and stuff like that. So, but no, it's not your fault for not getting up early and taking that into consideration. It's the soldiers' fault who have been given orders by the officers over them to do PT, and i.e. even the post general has made it that everybody during these hours, but it's always the soldiers' fault. Yeah, so absolutely crazy. The funny things with family members is you get this sense of entitlement. Other things that I've read on social media by what is it? They'll have it with family members. There was a big scuttlebutt about not putting away your shopping cart in the shopping cart little corral thing. Oh my gosh, you would think that that was the cause for all the pain and suffering in the world because somebody didn't put their shopping cart in the shopping cart corral. It was just, and that just kind of, so you see how this went. When you start getting the spouses of military involved in the things that goes on, oh my gosh, the drama gets even worse. All of a sudden it's like, if you don't put your shopping cart away, that you're a horrible individual, you shouldn't be a parent. I mean, excuse me, it just kind of exploded into this whole thing. And then it was like, it was hilarious because there was this lady that another spouse responded, and I'm kind of getting the officer vibe, spouse vibe from this lady about not putting back the carts in the cart thing because, that's how they are. It just kind of got that officer vibe. They all posted anonymously, of course, that's hilarious in and of itself. But this other lady pops up and she goes, that might have been me. And it's like, ooh, this is going to get good. Let me get my coffee and drink and some popcorn and we'll just go to town on this. So anyway, this lady says, that might have been me. And then she goes on to say that she had a few kids in the car, she had a baby on her hip, and she was parked far away, and she was pregnant. And so she just put the cart, because her kids she had little kids in the car, and she didn't want to leave them unattended, and all the parking spots were full, and they weren't close to the cart corral thing, so she just left the cart there, and didn't want to leave her kids unattended. And then the scuttlebutt just kind of exploded after that. It was just like people were like, oh, snap. And then there was more, well, you should have parked closer. And I mean, it just blew up. The drama was insane. So, yeah, you still get a lot of that. Oh, my gosh. It is hilarious. And people are just, it's like the end of the world. I don't know what it is with the younger generations. There was one where somebody was complaining about how a maintenance vehicle, so on Camp Humphreys, which is a military base, you have workers that will do maintenance on building and landscaping and plumbing and whatever it is, and it ends up that one maintenance vehicle had pulled into a parking spot, I guess way out in the middle of nowhere, but there was some parking designation for like first sergeant, sergeant major, or whatever. But it was like an older place, and apparently the sergeant major, nobody was parking there, but the maintenance vehicle pulled in because they had a bunch of equipment. And so this person came by and was driving by, they were walking their dog. That's what it was. And just got on these Korean workers about, you shouldn't park in this parking space. And they're just like, hey, we're doing work. It's what, this is the sergeant major or first sergeant's parking spot, and just got so offended that somebody had parked in the first sergeant or sergeant major's parking spot when there was nobody around. And apparently it was in an area where, yeah, it's not like a daily thing that a sergeant major, it was kind of like an abandoned, rarely used parking spot. So they were going into a building and working on some stuff, and they were doing some work on the outside. And so this guy took it upon himself as he was walking his dog. He was really disgusted with this lack of following the rules and using the parking spot of a first sergeant or whatever for somebody that wasn't there. And the Koreans were like, well, if he shows up, we'll move. But apparently the guy didn't like that at all either. So there was a whole big scuttlebutt on that as well. People, oh, your parking spots, you know. I threw my 2 cents in on that, and it's like, Lord is this the same guy that posts pictures in the PX parking lot showing how you parked just a quarter inch over the line into the next parking spot? I mean, seriously, there's people that do that, and it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, I don't remember. I'm thankful we didn't have social media back then, because a lot of people would have lost their shit. But then again, I mean, who goes around checking the parking spots to see who is parked over the line? There's a number of times where I've seen people that do horrible parking. There's people that are just learning how to drive. Maybe it's the first time they got their license, or maybe they're pricks and they don't really care. They take up 2 parking spots. If I can't park next to them, I'm going to go find another parking spot. So I don't really care. Just try to do better when you're parking. That's all I'm going to say. But these people make it sound like it's the end of the world. And the spouses get in there, and it's like, well, those lines are there for a reason. And my husband is this and that. And, Captain Major so-and-so, or First Sergeant, Sergeant Major, whatever. And it's just like, oh, my gosh, seriously. Leave it. Let it go. If it's not killing somebody, I mean, point on the doll where the person parking a quarter inch over the line hurt you. Where did they touch you? It's that whole thing. It's absolutely crazy. And then we get the people who, what they'll end up doing is, because they did something wrong, they play the victim, and they're kind of passive aggressive, and then they throw it up onto social media. So we're going to take a look at that. This is a recent one. So let's take a look here. Boom. So this is an anonymous member, and it's always anonymous. Always anonymous. Soldiers during early morning, please walk through the crosswalks. Don't run. It's dark and you are wearing black. So those people that don't know, military physical fitness training uniforms are black. Sometimes they were yellow. Sometimes you had a reflective belt on, whatever it is. But you're at the whim of the uniform that you are ordered to wear. And it's not like every Monday through Friday during certain hours of the morning, there's always going to be PT, and you're going to have soldiers doing road marches, running in formation or as individuals or whatever it is. And then it's a crosswalk. I don't know. And then there's even signs that say that during these hours and around soldiers, you need to drive slower, like 10 kilometers an hour and stuff. And so the onus is on the individual driving to be safe. But from what we see here, this is going to be pretty interesting, and it is already interesting. So this is kind of a cool one here. And wear your reflective PT belts while running. Now it's dark. No, I'm waiting for my insurance payout. If the Army issues it, I'll wear it. So now it's already, you can see this is going to be a good one. George says, my grandfather has a side lift, so I have to park a bit further to the left of the spot, and sometimes it goes a little over the line. Yeah. Or there's people that are handicapped, or people that have, they might not have a handicap sticker, but you have somebody who has mobility issues, so you want to make sure that the door opens in parking. I totally get that, but again, the world's not going to explode because you parked a quarter inch over, or even used 2 parking spots. Just let it go. So I ended up, and here's what I ended up saying. So you want soldiers to walk instead of run, so cars have better chance of hitting them. And again, here's the big thing. Just a joke. Just a joke. And then it says, I'm sorry to say, but that's a dumb response. Just a joke. You can't tell me that at this age you know nothing about safety rules when crossing the road. Actually, I know a lot. And the onus is on the driver of the motor vehicle that pedestrians have the right of way, and you need to drive according to the conditions. So if you know that the conditions, which include, I don't know, It has been posted, and it's common knowledge. Just like the sun comes up and the sun sets every single day, it is common knowledge that PT happens during designated hours, and you're going to have people crossing streets at crosswalks. And that begs the question, are you going so fast that somebody runs across a crosswalk, you're not paying attention, and you should have slowed down for said crosswalk to kind of begin with? And that your head should be on a swivel because you know thousands of soldiers are running around Camp Humphreys? That's all I'm going to say. Well, I'm going to say more. Somebody else says, why are you driving during PT and not doing PT? If you ain't a soldier, do PT anyway. And here's my other response. I guess you didn't read where I said just a joke. A joke is defined as something is said or done to provoke laughter, especially a brief oral narrative with a climactic, humorous twist. Notice it doesn't say, I guess I need to edit that. Notice it doesn't say to make everyone laugh. I hate that autocorrection. Apparently you didn't think it was funny. So let's break it down. You said soldiers walk instead of running through the crosswalks. The climactic, humorous twist is when I said you want the soldiers to walk instead of run so cars have a better chance to hit them, implying that some sort of game of by hitting people, and that it's harder for you if they run through the crosswalks. So you said to have them walk. So maybe this joke is too advanced for you. I'll remember that for next time. Anyway, it seems to me that the soldier ran through the crosswalk and you weren't paying attention and it surprised or scared you. You should drive according to the condition, which also includes expecting soldiers to walk or run during PT hours, which means you should drive slower and be more attentive. Been there, done that. Pretty sure pedestrians have the right of way regardless. Again, it was just a joke. Relax and learn to laugh a bit. Yeah. If they are like this on how they are, if they are like this, how are they in school zones? Yeah, I've seen some people speed through school zones like no tomorrow. Added on the weekly closeout safety brief, and you have to listen, and we have to listen, otherwise it's not going to happen. During the hours of PT, drivers also remember to look out for runners. Imagine that. Bill Hader 69 says, signs around posts saying you should drive 10 miles an hour when troops are present, PT, RUCs, Catoosa Academy marches, etc. You want them to walk during PT. Pay attention, buddy. How about they use those damn crosswalks? If you didn't see them and almost hit them, I'd love to ask you how fast you were going knowing service members were in the area doing PT. Yeah, deer in headlights. I can hear a first sergeant from here. That's why they wear PT belts. Well. So it's you in the gray sedan. Look, man, I had the runs and was rushing to the latrine. Thanks to you, though, my bowels practice an emergency evacuation procedure. And then they replied, I felt so bad. You just came out from nowhere. I'm so sorry. Plus, it was still so dark. There's a thing called headlights. But still, it doesn't matter if it was dark. You know that there are soldiers running, and it's common knowledge. And again, headlights, paying attention. You're driving too fast for the conditions, which is obviously troops around the area. It is just absolutely crazy. Or turn your headlights on and pay attention while driving. Being responsible is so hard nowadays. Goes both ways. How hard is it to wear your reflective belts? Oh, this just screams it. Anonymous, not required anymore. That's why the yellow part in the vest and the shirt are reflective material. And then this person says, they're not reflective enough. I have LED headlights bright enough. I have cars flashing their high beams, and y'all be looking like shadows on a dark background. You're not as visible as you think you are. Again, it's the drama that just amazes me. Seeing as seeing as G as it's not part of the effing uniform anymore. Man, God forbid that being entrusted with the privilege to mobilize in a 4,000-pound collection of metal, glass, aluminum, and rubber requires you to pay attention. Bet you'd blame a dumbass 4-year-old for jumping out in the street while you sped through your neighborhood. You are the one with the license to operate accordingly. Absolutely, absolutely. Most of these people around with tint darker than a black hole, then wondering why they can't see at night. Can't count how many cars they see driving with no headlights and then wonder why I'm flashing them. Yeah. In Korea, there is no law on that. You could have your vehicle totally tinted out so that you can't see out or nobody can see in, which I don't think is right. Then I posted, it would be nice, but it doesn't go both ways. It's on you to drive safely. As a licensed motor vehicle operator, it doesn't matter if they walk or run through crosswalks in reflective LED blaze orange or in all black clothes. It is on you to drive safely. Matter of fact, there are signs posted to reduce speed so you have time to react to situations during PT times. So there's that. Stay off your phone and eyes out. That's never been a problem with or without reflective belts. I would have bounced at least 36 old Koreans off the hood of my in Dunpo by now if what they wore made a difference. There's a ton of soldiers in all black clothes at dark, not going or walking in the middle of the road. When we lived there a few years ago, it was mandatory for everyone, even families, to wear reflective belt at dark. Not going or walking in the middle of the road. I have never seen that. A ton of soldiers in all black clothes, granted the uniforms are black, or walking in the middle of the road. Well, it is PT time, so some of them do walk in the middle of the road. It's called a formation, and they will have road guards and people with reflective vests to stop traffic so formations can go. Or if you're on the road and the soldiers are marching or jogging or road marching as a group, whatever it is, yeah, they're in the middle of the road because they're authorized to be in the middle of the road by some general officer. The powers above and beyond us have dedicated and said, so let it be written, so let it be done. These are the hours in which PT will be conducted, so vehicles need to slow down because of said soldiers doing PT. It is what it is. Yeah, so it's just funny to see all of the drama that goes on. George says they could at least have courtesy to post a point system for the ones you hit. There's that comedic, humorous twist at play. I don't think the original poster will get that though. So yeah, it's funny to be out of the military and see all of this drama that goes on, and it's just like, wow, what do we do with that? It is absolutely crazy. So with that being said, we've had a lot of fun stuff, and maybe I'll do some more posts like this from time to time. What do I got going on today? I've got an appointment I need to go to. Got to go get some mental health meds because stuff's all messed up here. So we're going to close this video out, and it's just fun. It's fun to sit back with the popcorn and read the drama that goes on, and you see people that are like, oh my gosh, thinking that it's the end of the world when it's like much ado about nothing. So it is just absolutely crazy. But it's fun to watch, and it's fun to read sometimes, and it's fun to see sometimes the stupidity that goes on in a person's head, and you're like, did you really think about... Write down what you just said and read it back slowly a few times. How did you think that was going to sound? Why did you think, and then, excuse me, people playing the victim and the whole 9 yards, and, oh, you people are terrible, blah, 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 blah. George says, like the sign, slow children at play. Oh, you poor things, those poor slow children. Yeah, that's hilarious. And I was a slow child too, so I can laugh at that. Learn to laugh at yourself and have some fun. And it's not as serious, when you get people that are so, oh, parking spots, and it's just like, go get a life, go do something, get a job. I remember during my years, we didn't have time to do this stuff. Granted, there was no social media. We were too busy working. It was too busy doing what we needed to do. And it's like, we didn't think twice about somebody taking up two spaces. It's like, that person's a prick, whatever. Drive on, I'm going to go somewhere else. And then at the end of the day, no one gave a shit. No one gave a damn. But apparently people do give a damn, and it goes on and on and on and on. Some of these posts, there were some other posts that I wanted to bring up, but they were deleted from the page because they just got so out of hand and it was so hilarious. So hopefully I'll try to capture those in the future, seeing that how those could be really good. But some of the really, really juicy ones, they go on for a while and they're deleted off the page because it gets a little rough. So anyway, that's what we got going on. We have the funny stuff that soldiers and family members say, and it's just the drama, the military drama, and the dependopotamuses that, the military dependent spouses that think they're all that in a bag of chips, and, that they know more than anybody else, and that the world revolves around them or their husband's rank, and, the whole nine yards. They should be given special courtesies. I remember how there was an officer wife that she wanted dedicated parking because of her husband's rank. And for those of you who are in the military, you know that sometimes you'll have parking spots right up front of the PX or the commissary for, like the post commander or, the command sergeant major of the post or, whatever. But this lady, I think she was a major, that she, by virtue of her husband's rank, which was major, which really isn't that high of a rank at all, wanted to have designated majorette parking spots because apparently she thought, she should be afforded a space closer than the lower enlisted because they are beneath her because of her husband's rank. And that's not how it works. So anyway, yeah, I just say get rid of all the specialty parking. Just have it be a free for all. Just let it go. Well, kind of a Mad Max Thunderdome type of thing. 2 men enter, 1 man leave, and whoever gets a parking spot, that's who gets it. So anyway, we're gonna finish this up. I got to get ready and go to the hospital and do that stuff. So that'll be a half-day thing. And get some lunch, and we'll continue on. So be sure to like the video. I would really appreciate that if you could like and subscribe to the channel. That would help me out a lot. And with that, Terry says for everybody, have a good day. And with that, we're going to do the obligatory outro. And there it is. Coffee. People who bought me coffee, they're incredibly awesome. Link in the description box down below. If you want to email me about anything, military stories, history, just say hi. Had somebody send me pictures of their smoked beef ribs. Oh my gosh, that looks so good. Whatever it is, I always answer my emails, so there's that. Also, share information on retiring in Korea in our situation. Love to share that as well to help other people out that might have a Korean spouse who have Korean ancestry on how we retired in Korea. So with that, yeah, we're done. We're done. So go ahead and post that on social media, and we'll just go to town. We'll just go to town and have a lot of fun. Ned Venton says, have a great day, Steve, and you as well, and everybody else that's watching. I appreciate it, and we'll see you all in the next video. All right? Peace. Crazy.